everybody. Thank you so much for coming this morning on Founders Day to my first state of a college in quite a long time. It's wonderful to be here with you to start off by just celebrating the fact that we can be together and that we are together at an extraordinary place. And one of the peculiarities of kind of our Founders Day traditions is that we are part of a college that's constantly reinventing itself, yet is also really proud of the traditions and the places that we have individually and collectively come from. And so it's great to be together to think about that and where we are right now. And in the Wayback Machine to 1887, when we first began, it was actually kind of hard to get this place started. And when you see a success, you imagine that it was always meant to be a success, when in fact, this was a jump ball for quite some time. Within 6 months of the Articles of Incorporation for the college being filed with the state, the railroad boom, which basically had fueled Western expansion and is the reason for Claremont being where it is, had completely gone bust. And so all of the pledges of financial support for the college's future lay uncollected. And Charles Sumner, for whom Sumner Hall was named, was essentially given the brief of saving the college the first time around, which he did. And he managed to not only save it, but that's the reason that Sumner Hall, perhaps our oldest and most distinctive building on campus, is what it is. And it welcomes every student who comes in person to see our campus. And more than 25,000 alumni since Charles Burt Sumner, and be pretty glad that this jump ball, in fact, succeeded. So when we opened in 1888, in September in the city of Pomona, there were just 3 college freshmen. But what I didn't know until recently was that in addition to those 3 freshmen, there were 52 prep school students, showing an interest even then in what the pipeline to college looked like, and 55 music students, putting art at the center of what it is that we do together. There's an incredible future ahead of those students and this college, but none of them could have foreseen what it would be. And right now, when we fast forward, we are in a college that took root in a town with no paved streets. And we're one of the most highly regarded colleges in the nation. And an interesting fact about that is, not that we get overly fixated on rankings, but of all of the schools founded since the Civil War that have entered the top 10 in the United States, all of them are from Claremont. The reason for that is not necessarily that Claremont is magical, though sometimes, especially when it rains and the air smells fresh and the eucalyptus, you can just get that scent. It feels magical. But the real reason is that we have extraordinary people who felt something in those first years, and every time we draw new people into campus, they continue to feel that sense of something extraordinary. And from those humble beginnings, we've got a Nobel Prize winner and leaders in business and the arts. But what also makes us special is that we never rest on our laurels, right? We always look higher to who we can become and what we can do. And that means that I think it's crucial for all of us here to remember that the acts that we carry out today, the things that we're doing now, lay the foundation for a future. And it can be very easy at times to talk about Pomona in the third person, right, as an it or a they. But in fact, Pomona is a we. And it's a we that does all kinds of things. We argue with each other, we disagree, we learn, we care about each other an extraordinary amount. We chirp together, we plan for the future, and we do things that are consequential on this campus. And when we are in our classrooms with our students, or we're in our offices with them, or walking around campus, helping them remember that what they do on this campus is setting the foundations for the rest of their lives is a pretty special privilege that we share, helping them to truly bear and trust their added riches for all who follow. Now, the umbrella under which we've been doing this now for the past 5 years has been our strategic vision, which was put together by a group of faculty, students, staff, alumni, and trustees starting in 2018, when we spent 2 years. I'm looking at a couple of the people in the room who were locked in that process together. We identified 3 essential elements of what it is that we currently do on campus that we needed to recommit to and expand. And that conversation largely began with a central idea that any idea of our strategy, any idea of our future has to begin with who we can attract to our campus. Students to begin with, but faculty and staff. And this past year, you really see what the scale of that means. I think we had 12,989 students apply to Pomona, which I mention not because I think the number in of itself is something significant, but it illustrates the scale of a challenge that we have. Right. If our students are in some ways the most precious part of who and what we are, being able to identify the kinds of talent and the kinds of people who can enrich our lives, can help each other to learn, and can move on to do great things in the world, that's a huge task. And so our first strategic pillar of equity and access really is meant to get at this. We have to cast a wide net, especially in a world that we are in now, post the Supreme Court decision that ended affirmative action in college admissions. The wider the net that we cast, the more we can be confident that we are reaching the most talented people, from the axiom that intellectual talent is spread pretty uniformly across humankind. It's not something that is the privilege of only the privileged, however you want to describe it. And means we have to be active in going out to find them. And so this year, our admissions team visited 514 schools in 21 countries and 37 states to find those students. More than 5,500 students couldn't make it to campus, and they met them online. And over 7,000 students who, while they were traveling, and more than 6,700 students here right on campus as the tour guides were walking backwards and putting my heart in my throat every time they step off a curb. But that commitment, I want to thank the folks at Admissions for that, because you bring us a present. You bring us 400 plus presents every year. This year that meant that 24% of the students we brought to campus were first in their families ever to go to college, which is an immense achievement for each one of those students and their families, and makes me feel extraordinary. That's a new record for us. We have fewer international students than we have in the recent past, in part because of some of the changes to policies and around immigration. We have 25 QuestBridge match students and 19 Posse scholars, and their interests cover the gamut. The breadth of the humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences, as well as the interdisciplinary programs that we offer. And there are a lot of schools that will talk about this valedictorian and that valedictorian as members of the senior class. That would get boring after a while at Pomona. So the only one I'm going to mention is a student named Audie O'Neill, who is a juggler. And in their application wrote that they had taught 47 students to juggle at their high school. And that was definitely a distinguishing factor in that application. We want to find the best students, define all sorts of different ways, because best doesn't look just one way, right? Best, if we wanted to fill our class with people who had perfect scores on a standardized test, we could do that. But that wouldn't be a Pomona class, because they wouldn't be varied in their interests. They wouldn't think in all sorts of different ways, but they would have been really well prepared to pass tests. But every day in a Pomona classroom is not taking a test, and every day in the rest of their lives is not doing a problem set. And we have the long view in mind when we work with these extraordinary young people. So we have to find them, and we have to help them come. And so starting in the 1970s, that's when Pomona first went need blind in admissions, which meant that we did not have to, as many schools still do, consider whether or not a student could afford to pay before we let them in. Because when you think about it, it's kind of a false promise. I'll let you in, but too bad, sorry, I know you can't pay. So schools that aren't need blind, I don't fault them for that, and I don't think we should fault them for that. It's about being able to be responsible, pay the costs that it takes to run an institution, but there's also it can be a degree of awareness as to what the price of college really means. We started that blind admissions in the 1970s, but we could not afford to go full need until in the 2000s. Where we finally had raised enough money to take the next step. And so people talk about Pomona as being a very wealthy, rich institution, but it took us nearly 100 years to get to the point where we could afford to have the most needy of students not have to pay. But that was only another step, right? Because we know based on the admissions information that we have that students from middle-income families don't even apply to Pomona at the rate in which they're represented in the high school graduating population, because they screen themselves out feeling that they're never going to be able to pay what it costs, and they don't even want to ask their parents to consider it. And so what we're trying to do in our strategic plan right now is to raise the funds to make sure that middle-income families know that Pomona is within their reach. And with really good financial aid, in fact, it can be far less expensive to go to Pomona than to go to a flagship state college. And they're going to be more likely to graduate within 4 years and to graduate debt-free. And that's the promise that we want to expand, so that our dreams of having equitable access to this institution can go that next step and become just that much more real. Now, so far in our capital campaign, which is moving along, we've had some extraordinary gifts to help us get there. And so two of our alumni, Sam and Emily Glick, both of the class of 2004, met in an econ class. I'm looking at the faculty member right now who officiated at their wedding. Sam is our former board chair, and they gave a very special gift of $2,474,747.47 to help us launch a pilot to make Pomona more affordable to middle-income students. And so Sam and Emily, thank you. So our strategic vision begins with expanding the view of who can come to our college, and it then goes on to think about what happens while those students are here. And our second pillar is transformative knowledge and creativity. And the landscape of knowledge has changed significantly since 1887, and our faculty along with it. But our strategic vision includes a commitment to expand the size of our faculty, as well as to broaden the range of knowledge with which we engage and to cross new frontiers in what we discover and create. And this year we have 15 new colleagues who are joining us, which is superb. They are teaching in 13 different departments. I'm looking at one of them right now who is a new faculty member, but also an old new faculty member who came back. Their expertise ranges from digital media technology and surveillance and their impact on democracy to how to make AI more energy efficient, huge question, how to better understand what makes real brains computationally adept, and even how to run a little farther and be a lot healthier in Sage Hen athletics. And that matters not because of a magic ratio of students to faculty. It matters because Pomona faculty inspire our students and the intimate, close interconnections we're able to build. And I read about this every year when we do our WIG Distinguished Faculty Awards. And students say things literally like, "Can he teach me everything for the rest of my life?" And 20 or 30 years later, alumni still recall the impact of their mentors. I was reading a tribute written by our alumna Meredith Corse about our beloved neuroscience colleague and friend, Carl Johnson, whom we lost this summer. He not only introduced Meredith to her husband during office hours, but he even officiated at their wedding. And she wrote, quote, "Professor Johnson had the superpowers of both seeing generously who we could become and knowing how to help us get there. And Carl, we miss you every day." At Pomona, we continue to find new ways to connect across generations, because that's what education really is. And one of the ways in which we're doing this is the Return to Pomona program, which brings talented alumni back to campus to contribute to their deep knowledge and lived wisdom in the classroom and beyond. So this year we have 3 alumni whom I'd like you to keep a lookout for. Alfredo Romero, class of 91, Scott Lispin, class of 77, and Amaro Tejeda, class of 13. And they're teaching courses and offering lectures and around campus. So look out for ways to interact with them this year. The world that we're preparing our students for is increasingly interconnected. And as we move forward in the strategic vision, our approach to education is becoming more globally focused and more interested in lifting up these new kinds of interconnection. And so you undoubtedly heard about, and I know many of you have contributed to, the Global Pomona project, which is capably guided now by Kara Godwin, our Chief Global Officer. And it's really about answering a vital question. How do we prepare Pomona graduates to lead in a world of problems whose scale and complexity makes them define whole generations? Students preparing for impactful careers obviously need more than a narrow or parochial perspective. And this is the revolutionary idea that Dietrich Oldenburg started here more than 60 years ago when he endowed the Oldenburg Center. And certainly our students need to be fluent in languages and cultures, but they need to learn more than just to speak to one another and listen to each other, but they need to learn how to work together, how to collaborate across divides and think deeply and creatively across borders and across disciplines. And as part of this, we've launched new faculty-led study abroad opportunities in the past 3 years, the Global Gateways, where faculty have taken students to Belgium, Morocco, Mexico, and Hawaii to tackle issues of migration, labor, conservation, and culture alongside community partners who have unmatched local expertise, so they can put the liberal arts to work in collaboration with others around the world. We want to foster broader and deeper thinking about the challenges our world faces, and the new Center for Global Education is going to be the hub for this. If everything goes as planned, and we are making really good progress, construction on this will begin this summer with a move-in date of fall 2028. This new center is going to be a significant building project. It's 100,000 square feet. It'll have living space for 200 students. It'll have dining and event spaces, classrooms, and outdoor environments, and I can't wait to see it take shape. Now, the final pillar of our strategic vision is flourishing and inclusion. And here I want to just take a moment to acknowledge how hard the last 2 years on our campus really have been. The devastation of the war in Israel and Palestine brought sorrow and anger and activism to our campus. And at the same time that this was going on here, the rise in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism across the globe broke many of our hearts. But then here, as protests about Gaza gripped our own campus and escalated to the occupation of Carnegie, the feelings of isolation and loneliness of many members of our community grew ever more intense. And the fact that we could not talk to one another, but seemed only to be able to shout at one another, and that we couldn't listen to each other's pain, that made the pain a lot worse. No one wanted to believe that our beautiful college could be that place, or it could be a place where anti-Semitism could be real. So many of us felt that that was long ago and somebody else's problem. But there were moments on this campus we didn't live up to our ideals. And so for the past 11 months, Pomona's been in a mediation that includes some of our own students, as well as the Anti-Defamation League of the US and the Brandeis Center. And I hope that we can resolve this soon and come to an agreement that protects our students, supports the freedom of all to speak and teach and learn, that lifts up all of our voices and gives confidence to everyone that hatred, whether it's of Jews, of Israelis, of Palestinians, of Muslims, hatred full stop has no place on our campus. This means we have to commit alongside one another to make our campus better. And we'll do it together. And I'm proud to do it with you, because I know of no place better suited to the task of showing each other that we care and for making room for all of who we are on our campus. That's deeply embedded, I think, in the Pomona way of life. And we try to reach for that in everything that we do. If we're going to live up to our promise overall, our whole community need to feel that we're part of one place. We need to feel our best. We need to feel physically and mentally healthy. We've made strides toward that. Hamilton Health Box has become a valued resource for faculty and staff who can now get free medical attention on campus without the time or stress of juggling work and personal obligations. We've seen an uptick in visits. Shout out Nurse Stephanie. If you haven't gone over to see her to get your flu shot, go for it. We're working with other members of the consortium on developing housing solutions for faculty and staff, and Jeff Roth will be sharing more about that soon, we hope. And two of the ways that we're supporting flourishing and inclusion in academics I do want to draw your attention to. The first is the Center for Inclusive Excellence, which focuses attention on teaching and mentoring strategies for all students. Their work on inclusive pedagogy is at the heart of our efforts to create an environment where every student feels they belong. We know that success in the classroom means that you can actually get access to the course materials that you need, an issue that some of our students struggle with. Textbooks aren't cheap, and some courses require expensive additional materials too, and that's where an initiative led by our own Associate Professor of Psychological Science, Sarah Maslin, fits in. Currently running as a pilot across 38 courses, the college is providing books and course materials at no cost for students, which helps level the playing field so everyone can fully engage in their coursework. And a few great comments about this from the pilot so far from a faculty member. Thank you, thank you, thank you for including my course. It's been transformative. Every student has the books, they're all reading the books, and class is going so much better. In a student's perspective, buying books for college is whack, with you. And from another student, this program is incredible. I can't express how grateful I was to save $300 this semester. I hope Pomona administrators are smart enough to implement this system into all classes going into the future. Working on it. We're raising the money for that right now, and I couldn't be more grateful to the energy and professionalism of our incredible advancement team. They just concluded a fiscal year that broke all of our fundraising records, the last one by 44%. We raised $82.8 million from more than 7,900 donors. And I'm really grateful to those individuals for the faith they've placed in us to carry out our mission. Fundraising here supports everything. It's scholarships, endowed professorships, capital projects, lectures, internships, research. Virtually every area of campus life is funded by philanthropy. And it's not just about asking for money, it's about matching passions to opportunities. And so if you were able to look around campus 2 weeks ago at the research fair on Stover Walk, that's the moment when you see those passions just light up and run wild. And if you missed it, the Intensive Summer Experience Symposium, mark your calendars for October of next year. You never know what you'll see. There's a student dressed up in a suit of armor, and it can make your day. Overall, I just want you to know that Pomona College is thriving. But it would be an incomplete picture of this place if I didn't mention some of the things that are challenging us as we move forward. And a lot of it has to do with higher education as a whole. But I'm really optimistic in my best moments. Because none of this are we facing alone. When we think about the blows to research funding in the U.S., everything from the NSF to the NEH. We can be stronger together by joining forces. I just signed on to the AAC and U letter around the Higher Ed Compact, for example. And I'm grateful that we were able to redeploy funds that had gone to the endowment tax towards things like research. But we're going to feel the sting, because I don't think that the threats to higher education that we're seeing now are going to stop anytime soon. And we all need to be prepared for emergent challenges to come at us over the next several years. And so I'm spending time talking with other college presidents and thinking about ways that we can meet them together, how we can, for example, band together to really take a look at how we can maintain a competitive research landscape that's free of political interference is a major priority for me. But we have to recognize the moment that we're in, the work that's required to meet it. But we've faced uncertain, difficult times before as a college, and we've come through them. At some point today, if you get a chance, walk over to Carnegie, and on the south side of the building, there's a red sandstone hunk that is on a small pedestal. That was the cornerstone of the college's first building, which was never completed at its original location. And it was hijacked by a group of students, the class of 1895. And in secret, they carved their class numerals on it, and in Greek, their motto, not to live, but to live well. And I'm looking at the college's Greek historian who can verify this for us, ancient Greek historian. And they unveiled it on their class day. And with them, I'd like to just join in saying thank you to the founders of Pomona College for laying a strong foundation for us. Thank you to the president of Pomona College for the incredible work to teach our students, to lift them up, to house them, to feed them, to help them grow, keep them healthy. And let's together continue that work. Know that I deeply appreciate it. I deeply appreciate the work that you do. I'm so happy to be able to see you here today. We're serving another generation of students who will go forth from this place our founders built, ready to share their added riches to benefit all humankind. I will add, the extraterrestrials are on their own. Chirp, chirp.